You make money in real estate when you buy a property and not when you sell it. Today we are in Bellwood, and this is a perfect example. Jackie Torres just bought this property, but it's got some problems. So we're gonna go inside and figure out how we help her maximize her profits. So Ms. Jacqueline, we're in the house, right? And the biggest challenge is the square footage. Any ideas you guys had when you were buying it as to how to increase that or maybe provide some more space?
We were planning to finish the basement and add a bathroom and finish living room space.
So you could have doubled the space, but what's the problem?
Our biggest challenge right now is that the ceiling height in the basement is just under 7 feet, and that's a requirement for this village.
To finish the basement, you need 7 feet here,
Yes.
right? That's kind of one of the code issues. So did you know that before you got started? Did you look for that when you bought the property?
No, I thought because we fit pretty good that we were good to go. We
Right,
thought
I
we
mean-
could open the drop ceiling, we would make it.
Yeah, so when you're short, everything seems tall to you, right? It's just, I have the same problem, but this is kind of one of those houses. Now, there is a saving grace on this house, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but let's kind of look at the numbers, because that's really what investing is all about, is how do I maximize my profit given my particular business profile? So you're a paralegal.
Yes.
That's your full-time job. Your husband has a full-time job.
Yes.
Okay. So what are you trying to accomplish on a bigger scale? And then we'll come back to this house. What is your goal? Is it to do more flips, make 50, 60, 100,000 extra a year, or is it truly to basically be able to build financial wealth?
Our plan is to build financial wealth, and our main goal is to try to get me to be work optional.
Okay, got it. So you have the option to be able to work. How many properties you currently have?
We own, this will be our 6th property.
This will be 6. And you came to Mastery with 5 properties already in the bag.
Yes.
Okay, so now this is truly about building scale.
Yes.
Okay, got it. So keeping that in perspective, let's kind of run through the numbers. So if we look at the flip calculator,
we're going to look at what is the maximum amount based on our Mastery calculator that she could have paid for the property. So let's put in the numbers. So for a flip, if she flips the property as a 2-bedroom, then the back end number is going to be somewhere around $220,000, assuming she's going to get the flip done, which is rehab the property and put it back on the market, get it sold in 6 months. About $1,000 to $1,500 are her purchase related costs. Every month, it's costing her, let's just say, about $1,000 or so as far as her finance costs. Her taxes per month, about $500, assuming that her tax bill is $6,000 a year. During rehab, she's paying about $200 in insurance when the rehab is going on, about $40,000 in terms of her repair costs, and monthly expenses, utilities wise, about 4%, $150 commissions. If she sells the property, about 4% is what she's paying out. Now, she happens to be a real estate agent, so she's going to save some money, but we're assuming that she's getting paid some commissions. Then as far as the sale wise, closing cost, other costs for attorney, miscellaneous, and then what would be a reasonable profit. So about $45,000 based on a 220. So we generally want to make on a 220 sale, which is the back end ARV. The ARV, after repair value, you're going to sell the property for at least a 20% profit in 6 months. Minimum 15, but 20 is ideal. So based on that, what could she pay for the property? The maximum that she could pay is somewhere around $110,000, $111,000. Now, she bought the property less than that, which is great. So that's our max offer based on our flipping calculator. Now, let's put her real numbers in, what she bought the property for, into the calculator, and we'll look whether the property cash flows based on the current scenario with the property. So I'm not going to go into the rental max offer calculator. That's going to be for another time. But let's look at the cash flow calculator. So cash flow calculator wise, 108 is what she bought the property for. I already have the numbers populated here. $40,000 rehab. So this is going to be 1,000 because that's the number we had used over there. And then carrying cost about 11,000. So here we go. So her all-in cost, meaning her purchase, rehab, all-in cost, if she's going to do the property as a rental, would be about 162,000. Now, assuming she gets the same appraisal, somewhere around 220, and she does a 75% takeout type of a loan, her rent over here is somewhere around $2,000. Her taxes are about $5,500, insurance about $900. Does she have equity? That's the first thing we look for. The equity is the first thing. Does she have equity? Yes, 26% equity. How much money would she have in the deal? Zero, right? Zero money in the deal. What would her cash flow look like? Her cash flow would be $443 every single month. And what is her DCR? 1.43. Excellent ratios. It works, right? She has a good amount of equity, 25-30% equity in the property. On top of that, every single month it will make her $443, and the debt coverage is really good. So these numbers absolutely make sense.
So would you rather flip it or would you rather keep the property?
I'd rather keep the property.
You'd rather keep it. So now that if you're going to keep it, because that's a bigger part of your plan. Now, for everybody watching, you may say, Andrew, she's crazy, right? But it doesn't really matter what she wants to do. The question becomes is, would you rather keep $35,000 in your pocket? And a lot of people will be like, oh my God, that's a lot of money. So let's look at the property from a rental perspective, because that's truly what her goal is for this property. So let's kind of start with the living room. Outside, I know we said no fence, right? Because that's an additional expense she doesn't have to engage in. The garage door needs to be changed. That's going to be about $800 or so. But you already had the roof done. How much did you pay for the roof?
I paid $4,800.
$4,800. So that was a great price. Because guys, listen, after you have bought the property, you make money when you buy. And that's the most important thing we're going to come back to. What did she really pay for the property? So $4,800 for the roof. And then all your LVPs got to be changed in the house. Obviously, it's all got to be cleaned up, painted, all the touch-ups, lights got to be all changed, fixtures have to be changed. But besides that, we're left with three major things, right? We're left with your HVAC system. We're left with interior rehab, which we talked about. You're going to probably put a brand new bathroom here upstairs, right? A new kitchen, that sort of thing. And we're left with electrical and plumbing. So let's start with electrical. Do you have a budget on the electrical?
Yes, I do. It's about $6,000 to $8,000.
$6,000 to $8,000. So basically in electrical, you always are going to have two pieces. One is going to be rough electrical. Anything behind the walls, all the lines that are running through, all your conduit, all of that stuff, that's called rough electrical, right? Your power service coming in, that's going to be all included in rough. Now on the rough electrical side, you have a panel downstairs. Do you think you have enough breakers there? You have enough room for expansion?
Yes, I do. It's about 100 amp and then there's about 5 spots available.
And you did inspect that whenever you bought the property?
Okay. My husband did. Yes.
Got it. Okay, perfect. So she did a good job with that, with her inspections, where she already knew, okay, I can save some money. I don't have to completely redo the electrical. Now in the basement, there's some whips that are running, right? That's not allowed by today's code that they follow. So that you're going to have to upgrade,
yes.
Right? So about $5,000 to $6,000, that seems pretty appropriate for the property. Second thing is plumbing. What's the quote for plumbing on this property?
If there's 2 different quotes, depending on if we add a bath. With the bath, it's about $14,000.
Okay, so with the bath, but then at $14,000, are you getting complete new plumbing?
Yes.
Okay, so to me, still that seems a little high, right? Where's the extra $3,000 or $4,000 going?
Well, to break the concrete in the basement.
You have an ejector system that needs to be taken out?
Yes.
Okay, got it. So that becomes important. So generally, when you're looking at this, your plumbing should be about $4,500 for rough. Again, rough is everything behind the walls is rough. And then rest of it is called trim plumbing. So think about it from a perspective of what, 45, And for a 45 puts you at about $9,000. Here she's saying 14. So I'm like, okay, where's the rest of the $4,000 or $5,000 going? So that's where it's going, because they have to cut the concrete. There's an old system. This is Chicago suburbs. So there's an old system where people used to illegally, it was not code, they had put it in. It's like a big crank, and you stop all the water whenever there's a kind of a storm, so the water doesn't come in. This is fairly common in some of the Chicago properties. So that today is not going to pass code, right? So all of that needs to be taken out, and then it needs to be redone. So when we talk about, so that's the electrical, plumbing. Now we're left with another one, which is HVAC, right? Did you look at the furnace? Did you look at the air conditioner? Did you look at the A-coil? What's your budget on that?
So for the AC, we need to replace the condenser and the A-coils, and that's about $4,000, which I've gotten a quote for.
Okay, so that you've already gotten a quote for, and is this you that's getting all these quotes, because you seem to know your numbers pretty well?
Yes.
Okay, all right, good.
I should say my husband is involved too.
Is he?
He's a
Procurement officer. Okay, so he
For the
basically
city,
sources.
so
Okay, got
yes,
it. Okay,
yes.
all right, good. So okay, now having said that said and done, like bathroom, pretty much as is, where is rehab, right? Rest of the house, it's going to be all LVP, which is luxury vinyl plank. All the walls and everything, you're going to take out this paneling. But the kitchen, we're in the kitchen because really there's no other place to really film in the house, just because of the size, right? And so in the kitchen, we were talking about a few different ideas, right? The cabinets have that small soffit, and even though it's like barely 6-8 inches, that's got to go.
Yep.
But what are you thinking about the kitchen in terms of layout? Are you going to leave it the way it is, or do you want to relay it out?
So two options. We were originally thinking to keep everything as is and make space for a small dishwasher, just to keep the cabinet, price down. Or after our conversation, the L actually sounds like creates more space for a table and eating, because the house is still so small.
Got it. So that's something that whenever you're flipping a house or rehabbing a house, you have to consider that where are people, and depending on if it's a rental versus a flip. Whenever it's a flip, as long as it's the mind's eye of the buyer, they can picture where things are going to go. So a house like this one, if I was going to do a flip, I would do an L I would do an L kind of this way, right? And then what I would do is it would give me enough room here for a small breakfast nook. Whether it makes sense or not doesn't matter. It's all about the pictures when you're flipping a house, especially today, which I would get the house virtually staged. I would not stage it in person. I would stage it virtually and sell the house. Now, if it's a rental in this particular area, that's where area selection becomes important, is regardless how you do it, whether you flip it that way, whether you flip it this way, the property will rent, because this is a very high rental demand area. So the question really becomes is, what does she like aesthetically, and what is it a little bit more functional for your tenant? But a pro tip on this thing is that before you start ripping out the kitchen, before you start doing anything, right? What I would do is I would measure and I would take pictures of all four corners of the kitchen, and then I would measure from this wall to where the window is, where the window starts, where the window ends, and where the middle of the fixtures are. On your plumbing fixtures, look, just measure that, right? And also you can tell them that, hey, we're doing a complete new kitchen, so I can truly move the fixtures anywhere. So can you draw it, given the space that you think aesthetically looks the best? So that doesn't cost you anything. Go to your Home Depot store or whatever big box stores you go and buy the base level of appliance, of cabinets. Nobody in a house like this one, nobody knows the difference. Do not buy custom cabinets. So even if she goes to literally Home Depot, picks up the basic set of cabinets, shaker cabinets, she will do fine with it, right? So now let's talk about the numbers, right?
Okay.
How did you find this property?
I found this property through a wholesaler.
Through a wholesaler, okay. And what was the initial price that they wanted to sell it to you at?
They wanted to sell it at for $120,000.
For $120,000, okay. So initially, was 120, and then you negotiated it down.
Yeah, I saw it. I saw it appear a couple times, so I knew they were under a contract. So I negotiated down to 108.
So you bought the property at 108,
Yes.
right? So guys, think about this. She bought the property at 108. The back end value on the property, meaning back end meaning after rehab, is 220,000. So she's going to make about 35,000. So it's a really, really, really good price that she bought the property. And if you're from Mastery or if you're in the Chicagoland area, literally within this suburb alone, there's hundreds of properties that are owned by all of us as a group, meaning I own a bunch of properties, somebody else owns a bunch of properties. So we know this area. This area is really, really good for a flip, but the city is a pain. I mean, that's just how it is. The city and the town is a pain, but this works. So if we compare this property, right, you have 5 other properties. The strategy here you're going to be using is purchase, rehab, and you're going to be able to completely refi. You're going to be in the property for 0, right, and still have cash flow and equity. Is it kind of similar to what you did with your other properties?
Well, there goes why I joined Mastery.
Okay.
I wasn't sure how to do the whole BRRRR strategy properly
Okay.
to get enough money out of the deal. So I always left some money in the deal.
So you're doing like 15, 20% down. And were those properties bought more at retail prices versus this one, or they were all properties you bought kind of at a discount, fixed them up? How were those purchased?
So those purchases were pretty much estate sales. So they were cosmetic stuff that we could
Okay.
take care of. Some of them were some live-in flips.
Okay.
So yeah, that's what we did. So I'd say I got them at a better price, but never at the price where I knew your calculation to get my numbers to where they need
Would
to be.
work, right. And that's the biggest thing. A lot of times, as if you're not investing, you got to get started. You got to get started somewhere. But this way of doing it, which was we call 257 cash flow for life, you're buying a property with equity. You're buying a property that cash flows every single month, minimum $450 to $550 a month after all expenses. Ideally, you have nothing invested in the deal and your DCR numbers work. Having said that, this is kind of fun, right? So we're gonna come back by the time you get the whole property done, and then we'll do another video. Other people have theories. We have properties. You want properties? Go to andrewholmesrealestate.com, register for one of the upcoming events, and I will see you there.